I don't know if you've seen in the news, but apparently Russia is about to invade Ukraine. Now, I don't feel like this is any new news, but this is all over the news. In fact, it's been all over the news for like the last 2 months. And I wanted to talk about this, but I wanted to think about how am I going to talk about this. So I want to try to simplify what's going on as far as from what I understand. Okay. So this is just my opinion of what I see is going on. So for the last, I don't know, month and a half, 2 months, CNN and MSNBC have been foaming at the mouth talking about, about how Russia is about to invade Ukraine. Now, the Ukrainian president, up until recently was begging the United States to stop talking about this, to like leave it alone. They're making a bigger deal of this than needs to be. And this is coming from the president of Ukraine, right? So why are we meddling? um, I think I've made my political standings pretty clear, but I'll say it again. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm independent. I try to stay down the middle of anything I do in life. I don't have a favorite football team. I like different teams, right? So that way I'm not picking a side, so I can kind of, live my life objectively. So looking at that and taking away from whatever Fox News is putting out, where they seem like they're very pro Putin, and the rest of the media is all about how we need to have a firm stance on this. And I started thinking, this reminds me of something. I've seen this in the past when I was a kid. I saw a very similar situation play out on the news. Of course, we didn't have the 24-hour news cycle like we do today, but when I was growing up in 1992, I would spend the summers with my grandparents, and sometimes we go up there for the holidays and things like that up in Pennsylvania. And my grandparents love watching the news and reading the newspaper. They're pretty well informed. And the Falkland War happened in 1992, and it was just a short, brief, couple of month war between Argentina or Argentine and England. And it was over a little group of islands that is just literally right off the coast of Argentina. So this is one of these things where it's like, if it's literally just off of their coast, why is England coming 8,000 miles away to claim this island? And then you have to kind of go way back in history, right? So, where everybody was going all over the ocean and the globe trying to plant their flag and claim land. And that's what England had done. In fact, France had gone to the Falklands and Spain had gone to the Falklands. The Argentinians had a little, bit of it. In fact, I think they were all on the island at one point, like a long, long time ago, but none of them knew each other were there until they started walking around on the island. We're like, hey, what are you doing here? And then like the Pope drew a line somewhere, down in South America and was like, okay, this belongs to these people and this belongs to these people. So that had gone on for like a couple of hundred years. And then in like the 90s, the Argentinians were like, hey, that's actually so close to us that literally should be us. Almost like Cuba is to Miami, right? Like if America could grab Cuba, we would in 2 seconds, right? So it was kind of one of these things. And that's what this feels like to me with what's going on over in Russia, is that this part of Ukraine that everybody's agreed, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, everybody's agreed that this part of Ukraine is predominantly, and nobody will give a percentage, but predominantly Russian speaking people. So why would they not want to give it away? Why would they not want to just say, hey, Soviet Union, Russia, you can have this? This becomes so frustrating because this just feels like this is one of these situations where it's like, hey, Biden's numbers are down low. We're still in COVID. We've still got, is it masks on and off? The CDC can't figure out what they're doing. States are starting to relax things. The job numbers seem to be coming up, but, gas prices are still high, and, we're going through inflation. How can we get people's minds off of all this stuff? Oh, war. That's what helps, war. So it seems like, the major news networks are just so bloodthirsty over hoping that this happens because, even during the middle of the Olympics, they were like, hey, Russia's going to invade during the Olympics. Well, that never happened. And for like the last, couple of days, it could be any day now. In fact, it'll probably be last Wednesday. They were like, mark a date on the calendar. And I know the president of Ukraine kind of made a joke about that, saying, like set your DVRs or whatever. So to that point, like, how serious are we supposed to take any of this? Because especially CNN keeps showing you all these overhead satellite images of tanks, and they give no reference as to where they are. And it's like, it seems like it's the same satellite image. It's like, look, you can see right here, there's these tanks that weren't there yesterday. And it's like, yeah, you showed that yesterday, and it's the same photo. So it's, how serious are we supposed to take this? The United States has asked all their citizens to leave the Ukraine, to get out of Russia and all these kind of areas. Yet CNN has sent in some of their main anchors. So, if everybody's supposed to leave whatever potential crisis and danger that there is, why would you put like your prime time anchors in harm's way? That's typically where you put in like your people that are used to being in hostile environments. You're kind of like war journalists. So again, this seems like CNN, in the first Gulf War, where they had a couple of journalists on top of a hotel in Atlanta, filming that they were like really in Baghdad when they weren't. So, how much of this is real? How much of this is fake? Just to get our mind off of something else, right? So to get Biden's ratings back up, because they keep saying something, especially CNN keeps saying something, and the State Department said something the other day that really spun me for a loop, because I'd not heard this phrase except for in a negative fashion. And they kept saying false flag. And I just thought that was so weird that the guy from the State Department said that, Russia's going to be, conducting these false flag operations. And then CNN started saying this, and then MSNBC started saying this. I was like, wait a minute. That's that crap that Alex Jones used to talk about all the time, false flags. And all the media scorned him, right? They were like, oh, he's a, conspiracy theorist and all that, right? Using those black, or false flag operations. Yet they're now saying this thing. So it just seems so idiotic and ridiculous that they're devoting so much time and energy to this. I watch the news every day. And first thing when I turn it on this morning, it's, crisis in the Ukraine. I'm like, crisis? What about potential for a crisis? It's like the crisis is after after the tornadoes come through. But until the tornadoes come through, it's like it's a storm warning, and then it becomes like a storm watch. And then after, it's like, well, you see the devastation. So it just seems like they are so entrenched in all this hyperbole and wanting to manufacture something. Like they're really hoping and praying that Russia just comes in and invades all of Ukraine, which doesn't seem like that's what they want to do. And again, I'm not taking sides. I'm not a Putin sympathizer. I don't have any dog in this fight. I don't care. I know like Trump made a few comments yesterday and kind of made him look bonehead, where he was praising Putin for this move. But then, I did some more research and I looked into these things, over the last couple of days. And it was like, when the Soviet Union broke up in 1991 and they started, separating off all these new countries, Reagan had promised the Russians that NATO would not expand. And, back then there was like 12 to 16, countries that were involved in NATO. And now it's like 30. So can you understand where like Putin's frustration of, you keep bringing all these people into NATO. In the 50s, we asked if we could come into NATO and you turned us down. You wouldn't let us be in your little elite club. So Russia formed its own version of NATO, and that's where we get the Warsaw Pact from. So, it's like we have to protect ourselves. And when you look at like all the neighboring countries, just outside of Russia that have become parts of NATO, and now they're trying to bring like Finland and a few others in. Can you not understand where they're like, hey, you're threatening us because you're bringing all this stuff into here, which is military forces and all this. That's kind of what NATO is. It's a giant military made up of all these different countries' militaries, and everybody's supposed to pay into it. In fact, they were supposed to put in 2% of their GDP, but nobody's really done that, except for the United States. And we've put in like 3.2% of our GDP. So we've carried everybody else's water on this whole thing. And what was it, Trump, I guess recently was talking about pulling out of NATO, saying it was kind of an antiquated system anyway. I mean, this was created after World War II. In fact, what I'm going to do is I want to give you a whole bunch of boring history lessons. I'm going to put some videos down here. I'll put links to videos of people who've done amazing jobs describing what NATO is and the Falklands War and what's going on with Ukraine, and that this is like no new news. You know, that Russia's had military in this part of Ukraine for 8 years, since 2014. And nobody really kind of talked about it until now. You know, all of a sudden now these separatists, you know, are trying to break off. And it's like, well, yeah. And why are you calling them separatists? They're just Russians that just want to be back a part of their mother country. And everybody thinks that they have the inside news or the inside track. All the media people are bringing out all their old war generals, you know, these guys that are like in their freaking 80s and 90s talking about, yeah, well, back in my day, I remember. It's like, oh my God, some guy, General Spider Marks. I'm like, really? And they keep calling him Spider. This is just getting obnoxious. So it seems like to me that the media and, you know, the US government and the State Department are creating a false flag to get our minds off of, you know, the ridiculous inflation and, you know, everything else that they're screwing up with and how low Biden's numbers are. But what are your thoughts on this? Because like when I think of the Falklands and I think of, like, you know, places like Cuba, you know, like what would we do, you know, if we could, if there was a small opportunity for us to go in and grab Cuba, would we? You know, we absolutely would. You know, look what we've done to all these other islands throughout the rest of the world, where it's like when everybody was planting flags everywhere, and we're like, hey, we'll take Guam, we'll take Puerto Rico, we'll take Hawaii, you know, and not too long ago we took Alaska. You know, should we be giving that to Canada? You know, this is where you start wondering, how serious are these people? And are we just pissed that somebody else is doing what we do? Like, hey, you know, that's our game. You can't cut in on our action. I don't know. I don't try to pretend that I'm very informed in this. I just try to go from what I know off of history and things that I remember. And like I said, there's a great video that I'll put a link in here that talks all about the Falklands. It's very brief and it's got great animations and all kinds of stats. So you'll be very informed after watching that to understand what kind of happened there and see how this is very similar. So how serious is this really in a crisis? And I feel like they're all, you know, crying wolf right now because it's just day after day. Like it's at any time, or we've gotten word it should be imminent. It could be days from now. In fact, it could be hours. Like, oh, come on. Just, you know, this seems more like a ratings war. You know, like everybody's just, you know, trying to boost their ratings up more than it is a real crisis or a real war somewhere. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Let me know. Because at this point, these things just become comical because everything that we've learned through history about like Vietnam, Korea, you know, the first Gulf War, the second Gulf War, Afghanistan, all this other stuff that we've been involved in. Like, come on, we're on to you folks. We know what you're doing. So just stop it. We've got bigger fish to fry. We've got other things we could be focusing on right now, but we're not. We're have this dog and pony show going on. So I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let's get the conversation going because I feel like they're just trying to distract us. So are you distracted? Is it working? Let me know. Leave a comment down below. And if you enjoy my content, please hit the subscribe button. We'll see you next time.